Welcome to the Village Board Work Session. Today is Monday, December 27, 2021. Our work session agenda at 7, regular meeting to follow at 8. The first significant part of our meeting engages the police department. Chief Grutzner is here among us via Zoom. Welcome, sir. So the first item was discussion regarding police department goals for 2022. You want to comment on that, Eric?
Sure. Oh. Eric, do you want to go first? You have anything to add?
Sure. So the chief is joining us tonight as part of, and he can go into a little bit more detail, but as part of the village's police department policy book, the chief is to provide departmental goals every year on an annual basis. So the chief recognized that, and understandably, it's not been followed to the letter of the policy. But to his credit, he recognizes that and is being proactive. So the idea tonight is to engage in a conversation around this. And so, Chief, take it away.
Great, thank you. So, yeah, as part of our policies and procedures, we are expected to provide goals, not only announce those to the board and to the public, but also push those out to the membership. So I'm here tonight. The plan is that I would be back for my usual quarterly update, that second meeting in January, which would be the 24th. And at that time, I would like to present the goals to the board. So in advance of that, I would like the board's input and the community's input on potentially what some of these, what the goals could and should look like. Just as a point of reference, in the distant past, when some of these goals had been submitted, some of the things talked about reaching accreditation standards or either becoming accredited or potentially incremental improvements in the accreditation process. We saw goals towards training, especially internal training as far as preparing officers to have a supervisory role, preparing patrol officers to do, if not full investigations, at least respond to patrol calls with an eye towards investigation, sort of train up people to sort of cross their divisional boundaries. Cooperation between the divisions, community policing, but they were relatively general goals as far as, sort of being out. I understand that were we to, introduce a program or to have a goal, that's not necessarily untenable, but I'd also like some of these goals to have some sort of meat to them, for them to be smart goals that can be measured and tracked over time and be able to give ourselves an understanding of how close we came to meeting or how well or by how much we exceeded our goal through our efforts throughout the year. So really, like I said, I'd love to just start a dialogue about these things, what the board members have an interest in, have an interest in seeing, and then potentially we'll work on putting something together that I can present to you in about a month or so.
So one thing that has been on the radar screen in various ways for a long time has been managing calls that involve folks with special needs. What is your take on the way we could/should proceed with that training?
So,
and part of it is its availability, right?
Sure. Yeah. There's been quite a bit of talk in the community about a specific type of training. When I participated in that training, it was called crisis intervention training. It still is in some places. We do have various training opportunities that are extremely similar to that, with maybe a slightly different name. If you go out around the state or around the country, there's different trainings on this. But it's basically, it's a very immersive sort of class that really provides the officers with firsthand experience in dealing with people, not only with special needs, but also people in crisis, people with mental health issues. And it's we've talked about it before. We talked about it during the forum process. We've talked about it at the Nicole. We talked about it at the hold on, I don't have the name quite.
Yeah, we don't. I'm not sure we have the name yet.
Yeah, but the advisory committee for police community communication. We talked about it. And it has been it's an amazing training. It has been a priority for us to get as many officers through there as possible. Some of the issues that come with that are the availability of it, the location of it, and then of course it's a 40-hour class. And so that means pulling someone from their usual either patrol or detective duties for 5 days. And in patrol, we would have to backfill. We do have at this point now the personnel to be able to do that on a relatively on a more painless basis than we've probably had in some time with the staffing numbers that we're at currently. But there are some issues that go along with trying to just get as many officers in through there as we can, but we have made the commitment that we're going to do that. We do believe we have potentially 2 seats in a class in February for our officers to attend. And I think that's tremendous. I think also, though, in addition to that particular training, there are other trainings that become available, not just for potentially people with special needs, but just a real focus on sort of mental health. Obviously, you don't have to be in this line of work to realize that mental health is a serious concern for everybody here in the village and everywhere. So any sort of additional training that goes towards those types of calls that the officers might go on, be it de-escalation, be it an understanding of some of the parameters of what people might be dealing with, disability awareness. We try to take a real holistic approach to training when it comes to having the officers respond to those calls.
So you'll obviously have to give this some thought and then be back when you start to formulate these goals. But it seems like for 2022, we ought to adopt what we believe to be a reasonable goal to get as far along in that process as it's reasonable to get, right?
Yep. And I think also potentially having if maybe not a timeline, but at least a roadmap to sort of where we want to be or where we expect to be going forward. I'm sure some of these goals they're not going to be just based on the calendar year. They will continue going forward. And so, potentially to take the time to sit down and lay out really where we hope where we would like the department to be, not just this year, but going forward.
And then
I agree. So having something like a tentative schedule would be nice, even if it's pretty rough. And, acknowledging the fact that some of this training is not easily available. And so making the goals realistic, I think is, fine. But to have something concrete.
I don't have a full understanding of how the steps the county has taken to stand up a sort of crisis intervention group, how useful that will be to us in real time as compared to useful in a broader sense. So that, you probably don't have a solid sense of that either. It's just getting started, right?
Yeah, we've had a couple meetings with some of the Commissioner of Mental Health and a couple other people from the county who are really working to put this in place. They have very ambitious goals as far as having trained mental health personnel available to respond to the scene of a call in short order. How close they come to meeting those goals and how these things all logistically work out is still sort of the tricky part that has to be navigated still.
All right. So, clearly understanding how we could take advantage of that and how we could dovetail with it is also, it seems, a goal for this year. And then I was also wondering, in the same vein, you envision Dave Casal will still be the sort of officer with special needs issues as a significant piece of his portfolio?
So yeah, currently we're very happy with Officer Casal and the role that he's performed as our special needs liaison officer. He's sort of expanding that role to also include a number of health and wellness initiatives that he is attempting to A, be trained on, and then B, potentially present for our officers within the department. And then also obviously whatever he can take out to the public as well. So Dave has not only embraced the current role, but he's looked to take on more responsibility.
And so you're already ahead of me in this regard, but it seems like feeding into these 2022 goals ought to be, making certain that the work he's doing and our capacity to stay up to date with best practices in general is on someone's radar screen and part of their responsibility.
Yep. And he's we talked about this recently, but he has also established relationships with Spectrum on Tompkins Avenue and the Nicholas Center. And that is, as we talked about, we did coffee with a cop, and we had 8 or 9 officers who responded, who came down there for a couple hours and met the clients, met the families. Really became a positive interaction, and Dave was instrumental in setting that up.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dave is clearly a very good guy for that job. It's just, I think it would be nice in 2022 to ratify that in goals, so that it's part of what we do, as opposed to we happen to have somebody to do it.
Okay.
Then, there's also been discussion about how we manage bias incidents. Do you think that there are some goals attached to that? What do you think, David?
I think, didn't we talk about quarterly reporting to start out with, to breaking those out? By the way, the blotter is fantastic. I'm glad that you guys are sharing that now. It's also really entertaining. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. The highs and the lows. We try to capture sort of the emotional roller coaster that is this line of work sometimes.
Small town living.
That's right.
I think the DEI committee is going to meet next week. I want to say on the 5th. Is that right, Nicole?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, you're not talking about the police.
No, the non-police group.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when they're
I
meeting.
think it would be nice if we could do some kind of joint meeting with, at least from my perspective, with some of the non-white village residents to talk about concerns with with you, at least, Eric, and maybe some of your folks, if that's possible.
Sure. Would love that.
Okay, so let me talk to them, and then I'll also reach out to some of the other people who have contacted me in the interim.
Yep, terrific.
Great, thank you.
So, as a corollary to that, maybe, and I imagine this is already pretty well understood on your side, the matter of incidents like that happen in the schools with minors, right? Which is not in our purview, and B, there are all kinds of privacy issues attached to that, right, Chief?
Yes, absolutely. So, we have always enjoyed, and we talk about this all the time, a wonderful relationship with the schools and a great level of communication. That being said, we also realize sort of when they are most well suited to handle incidents there. Sometimes that is, like you said, legal bases and FERPA and a lot of other things that get attached. We know that there are things that go on in the schools that they need to keep secret, and they do, and that's wonderful. But we do enjoy a great relationship with the personnel in the schools. So, a lot of those incidents that go on definitely fall under the school's requirements for confidentiality. But we all also know that the schools have a great influence in the community, and things that happen outside of the school buildings proper and outside of school hours still impact their ability to deliver quality education. And so we sort of, cross-pollinate. So, we would need to, were an incident to ever occur where there was some school, some school requirements that had to be maintained, or some confidence that had to be kept based on school rules, then that would probably be a little bit more of a delicate situation to walk. But, they kind of have their regulations and we have ours. And
Right. And I just think, go ahead, David.
So some of the Asian parents who've had issues in the village and in the school jointly have had a regulatory lawyer looking at the laws concerning school disclosure. There were 8 incidents. The schools sort of group the incidents together between bullying, harassment, and bias. So you can't, in the New York State required reporting, you can't really break them out. But between the middle school and the high school, I think there were 8 incidents last year, which places it actually relatively high on the list in the peer group. So we've all
which could either mean it is relatively high, or it could mean that there's more transparent reporting.
Well, it could mean that, but we definitely have heard from parents whose children have experienced issues and have not reported. So we have no idea. I mean, there could be fewer of those in Pleasantville, as well as fewer people in the village who report things that happen, or there could be more. We really have no way of knowing. But suffice it to say that we're trying to figure out, because obviously you cannot disclose the names of minors or the information in any way that could lead back to them. But at the same time, some level of transparency is really important, and we're trying to figure out where there could be a bridge between the community need and the individual need for privacy.
So, I mean, that piece of it is in the school's bailiwick. It's not ours. Would you agree?
Well, yes, but I think we have to sort of tackle some aspects of this together, because these, the kids are moving in and out of the schools, and when they're 10 feet out off the property, it's Eric's problem and our problem. And when they step on the other side, it's the school's problem. So, that I think that creates a good motive to, like, if the school is doing education, it would be great to bring some of that to the parents and to the village, right? So I think there's room for cooperation.
Yeah, and so the schools have their requirements for confidentiality, as do we, as far as like you discussed, sort of minors, being either the victims or the of course, obviously the perpetrators of these incidents. And so, we would need to make sure that we are maintaining those confidentialities, and whether it's on school grounds or off school grounds or wherever the incident takes place, we would still need to make sure that we're responsible in all that.
Right.
So in that vein, Chief, and I think it is highly likely to happen given the history of things and the good folks involved, but with Mary Fox-Alter departing as superintendent in 4 days, and Tina Dessau taking over, obviously a 2020 goal ought to be to cement that relationship and continue with the strong cooperation, right?
Yeah, I was hoping that when we have this little meeting, we could invite her as well, just to start the dialogue.
Absolutely.
Just to continue with the same theme, the community communication group also raised the issue of anti-bias training, whether, what constitutes anti-bias training, what is sort of effective, and so on. I was wondering if you'd had any more thoughts about that and if that would figure into your goals for 2022. It's a difficult one, I think.
Yeah. So, as we talked about in that meeting, we definitely have we have some internal training that we're doing and we're continuing to do for our officers as far as bias is concerned, and especially specifically towards bias in police work and how it actually, the first thing most anti-bias training starts off with is we all have our biases. The goal is to recognize them and to make sure that that we work with work equally and serve the public equally, depending no matter what our personal beliefs are or personal thoughts are. So to have specific anti-bias training for police officers, I think becomes extremely relevant, and I think it's the best place for us to put our focus. We do have certain opportunities that present themselves. I haven't, at this point now, most of, I think, and this is an extremely lay person's approach to this, but from what I've seen was the real push, especially in the last year and a half, has been to train the officers inside the departments, really make that training local, not necessarily, if an officer goes to, say, an interview and interrogation school, there will be national companies that will come in and do these schools. They will hire these professionals. I don't know I haven't seen that yet on the bias side. But like I said, we have one of our officers, one of our sergeants who's trained to provide that training to our officers. The idea of principled policing, about anti-bias. It's difficult. It's obviously how the training is delivered. Is it online? That's always, you can get good training online, but it's always just online training, which, takes sort of with a grain of salt as far as how effective we think it's going to be. So we're hoping to sort of continue to find out different venues and different locations where we can have our officers participate in that training. But I think a big focus is also to make sure that we're prepared to deliver that training in-house.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that it's something that should be very local. And it seems like something that can work in conjunction with that is a kind of community outreach, or really more of a community engagement, where, if there are segments of the community that are less familiar with the police force, that maybe feel more intimidated for some reason or another, that, like the work that you were talking about, where the coffee with a cop at Spectrum, that kind of thing. But with different segments of the community, that seems like it could go a long way to address those issues as well.
Yep.
And hopefully that's something that this group can help facilitate too.
Mr. Alvarez had been, we've been discussing, the possibilities of sort of reaching out to our Spanish-speaking or primarily Spanish-speaking community. And I would expect that that will be a goal that we should be able to accomplish, with that assistance and with the assistance of other people in the community who've raised their hands and stepped up, as well as officers in the department who have expressed an interest in making sure that we make sure we open up we make sure everybody knows that our doors are always open.
Yeah. I mean, maybe even thinking about hosting some events as one of the goals for 2022. I mean, you don't want to be so ambitious that it's not realistic, obviously, but for instance, an event for the Spanish-speaking community that, I would be happy to attend as well, might be something to put on that list.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Okay.
So, Chief, related to 2022 goals, why don't you touch on the discussion about software to update policies and procedures?
Sure.
It sounds like that's a piece of what would be our goal for the coming year, right?
Yes. So, in conjunction with these goals and with moving forward in general and the police reform recommendations, we are interested in updating our policies and procedures. Currently our current system is literally typing out pieces of paper and handing them to the officers, who then are responsible to put them inside an extremely large binder, which is very difficult to access and not user-friendly in the sense that it is just a extremely large binder, but also B, the situations where the officers need to refer to the policies and procedures are the most often are probably the ones that happen the least, because when we go on a false alarm call, our policy and procedure on how to handle a false alarm call is pretty simple and often repeated for the officers, so they are proficient at it. But we want to make sure that we have the opportunity for the officers to reference the rules and regs and the policies and procedures on the unusual calls and on the times when maybe they're not as comfortable doing that. And so to that end, we have looked into a platform, an online digital platform, whereby we can not only have the policies and procedures living, so the officers can access them at a moment's notice, but also potentially have the ability to track the signing for the expiration dates of policies, sort of really have a robust digital lifespan of our policies and procedures as new ones are updated, who can sign off on it. So to that end, we've gotten quotes from a couple different places. Power DMS is a nationally recognized company that is not only in just the law enforcement field for policies and procedures, but also in other institutions like hospitals and schools and things like that. They are the company that if we were to seek national accreditation, They are the company that is required that you use for that process. I don't say that necessarily as we're going to be, we're planning on seeking national accreditation at this point, but it does have the background as an established leader in the industry of having the most robust platform for us to put our policies and procedures. We're excited about the possibility of launching with that and really rolling, really getting this process started in a real modern, up-to-date fashion.
And so, as you saw on the agenda, we have that proposal on as resolution 331 to approve, with the backup proposal from Power DMS, which is give or take $2,800 for the first 5 months of 2022 to get us to the end of the fiscal year. And then give or take $5,400 for the following year, that is 6/1 of 2022 to the end of the fiscal year. So, and that's the number we would be looking at going forward, Chief, give or take $5,400.
So the first full year, it's actually it's 5,082 included in. Oh no, I'm sorry. So
there's the training solution. So
training solution also, yes. So yeah, that would be. We would expect $5,400 per year going forward after that.
Okay, with whatever incremental increases. And is that feels like a pretty stable expense going forward?
Yes.
It's not one of these things where there's always another module to buy.
No, I mean they offer other things, but at this point now, we don't. I think that training module is going to allow us to put videos and PowerPoints and things up. It's going to be able to track the same way that we track the policies and procedures. It's going to track when the officers view the videos, how long they spend on them. Did we attach a quiz to the end? How did they score on that quiz? So it's a modern platform for.
So we have that on for approval tonight, and assuming it is approved, what's a reasonable 2022 goal?
I would say, obviously, we'll migrate our.
Yeah, maybe you need to think about that a bit, but.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a full migration onto the platform, and then a reasonable and responsible amount of policies or trainings that we use the platform for.
Yeah. So at any rate, give that matter some thought, and then that feeds into the question that we've discussed a few times about the consortium through the county looking at new police database software. Is that something that you envision would come to fruition in the coming 12 months, or we don't know?
I don't know. I know that it has laid dormant for a period of time over the last, say, year or so, but it is amped up to the point where we are meeting monthly. I'm currently on a subcommittee that is reviewing all of the four proposals that were submitted to the county's request. And we're going to go through and we're going to sort of score them all out and find out sort of where we really stand. Each one has a different price point. Each one brings different features and different drawbacks. So we're going to sort of take all four of those. Once we do that, there's still the work that needs to be done to unify everyone's user experience. So there will be a number of meetings in the, for lack of a better term, sort of in the front of the house, where all the different departments that are on board are going to have to agree on how certain issues are entered and sort of a uniformity of the data that goes in. And then in the back of the house will be sort of the liaisoning with the county to establish, to build up, to train all the officers on how to use these things. So I would say, could it potentially be done in a year? I don't want to say it can't, but I think to believe that we will fully transition to a new RMS within 2022 is probably very hopeful and maybe a little overreaching.
And we don't as yet really know what the costs will be, do we?
No, there's definitely a number of different silos of costs that are there. We are extremely, as the committee has moved forward, we've been very mindful of the fact that we have large agencies, small agencies, we have agencies with their own IT departments, we have agencies that don't. So trying to sort of negotiate all these things out, who's going to pay for what. The county has in the past discussed this as a shared services project and a capital IT project for the county. We're hopeful that that will result in a significant savings for the village. And then, but exactly how much is going to be covered, which are the incidentals, will there be data migration, things like that become,
All right. So,
other issues.
I mean, recognizing all those if-then statements, at least some piece of the 2022 goals ought to touch on that, right?
Mhm.
What about your physical plant? Is there more to be done?
In the
You've got the
building?
training room set up now, right?
Yep. Yep.
Are we done?
Training room is
All
set
right,
up.
until the next plumbing problem?
Exactly. Training room is done. Detective's office is done. Communications system, communications area was upgraded and done probably 3 or 4 years ago. So at this point now, really the space we have left would potentially be an evidence room, which we'll need to have a discussion about moving forward, especially as accreditation. With the consideration of accreditation on the horizon, that becomes something that is critical to that process.
Right. So, I mean, is it reasonable to think, and again, you don't have an answer now, but as part of the 2022 goals, that kind of stuff could be assessed and at least, a sort of a 5-year look ahead capital plan to the extent that such a thing is necessary. Maybe it isn't. We've talked at various points about your interview room and recording system. Is that up to snuff now, or is that still an issue? That kind of stuff.
No, that was recently replaced. So that is great. We're constantly looking to upgrade the video cameras that we have inside and outside the buildings. But Eric and the village administrator and I have been discussing capital projects. It's an ongoing project conversation at times, but
Right.
even recently, very specifically.
And other kinds of material equipment, cars, whatever, to the extent that you might envision anything different from what we have historically done, it'd be worth looking at, including the goal of, can we incorporate electric vehicles into the fleet?
Yes.
Right. So that's just something else to have on the radar screen.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything to add to that at the moment?
I had a question. Chief, do you have, for our constituents, do you have any examples of neighboring villages or towns that have got on these kind of systems or have done what we're essentially trying to do, just as kind of an example specifically of anyone?
When you say what we're trying to do, you're talking about with the digitizing of the policies and procedures?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So, especially since the police reform, a number of communities have gone through the process. Some that were already, there were a number that had already begun to do this kind of work. Whether it's going for accreditation, whether it is digitizing the platforms. Tarrytown has used a company and then changed gears. Let me just give me 1 minute. So yes, I mean, this is definitely, Scarsdale, for instance, uses Power DMS. They are nationally accredited, so they use Power DMS. Let's put it this way: a number of different villages are using Power DMS currently. A number of villages have also gone to other platforms looking for the content. So this particular platform does not provide content in any way, shape, or form. It is merely the framework by which our content lives online. So there are other companies that also provide content along with that. So some villages have gone to that. We feel like we can manage the content, and we've heard mixed reviews about the amount of labor it takes to sort of take the raw materials they give you and turn it into something that you can use. We think we'd be better served without going in that direction. But yes, there's a number of municipalities in the area who have also gone with Power DMS.
And do you believe that by going on these, obviously moving towards new technology, will this make it easier for our residents to be able to get records, for example, if they're filing FOILs or requests like that?
So I don't know that it will necessarily ease that process for people to get records. What it will do is, were there ever a question about the policies that were in place at a certain point in time in the past, whether if someone comes forward and says, I had an interaction with someone, we check to see what the policy is. Well, if somebody comes back and says, I had a negative interaction with someone 3 or 5 years ago, sort of it becomes a little bit more difficult to track exactly what policy was in place. We don't have that experience happening a great deal, but the robustness and the digitization of these records will definitely provide us with the ease to be able to interact with the community and let them know, that this is sort of what was expected of the officer, and that there is an efficiency and a productivity gain that comes from these things.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else on that? All right. It's obviously the beginning of a work in progress, and we'll have further discussions. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
You as well.
Mhm.
Thank you all very much.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Staging area, Manville Road, corridor improvement.
Yes.
So just to recap, we're in the bidding process for the Manville Road project, and we have a scheduled bid opening on
January 10th.
January 10th. So on January 10th, we will find out what the financial landscape is for this project.
That's right. And as part of that bidding process, we are communicating to prospective contractors what areas they can utilize for staging. A requirement that DOT has is that we have an engineer on site every day, every hour that this project is ongoing. And as part of that specification, we need to provide a trailer for them. So the area that we have identified—
a very big trailer.
Yes, a very big trailer. So the area, and we just wanted to make sure the board was familiar with this. There was some discussion about utilizing the north part of the Memorial Plaza and maybe putting construction fence around it. But there's just a lot going on here. So we're going to be able to stage the materials at the DPW yard and have the construction trailer be placed right here. It's going to take up about 7 spaces in the Manville Road parking lot. And so it's kind of tucked out of the way. It's close enough to the project for the inspector to easily be able to walk out and monitor what's going on. And we won't be left with an environment where we have to have orange construction tape in the middle of the parking lot for materials and or this trailer. So I wanted to communicate that to the board.
Did you say, sorry, did you say January 10th is when we're getting the bids back?
Yes.
That's when we're opening the bids, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So several factors go into this. One is obviously if we can reduce the logistics problems for a contractor, God willing, that reduces the price.
Right.
And yet, there's some give and take between the advantages we could give the contractor and the disadvantages the community would have to live with during the period of the construction. And that's what we're trying to balance here.
Right. And understanding the project is likely to extend past one construction season. So this, we'd have this in place for potentially over a year.
Right. Sounds pretty reasonable to me.
So it is imaginable that we could provide this office that is otherwise in this 70-foot trailer. Is it 70 feet, something like that, right?
Yep.
In some nearby rented office on a short-term basis. Whether that turns out to be realistic or not is obviously unknown. So,
right,
it would be nice if that could turn out to be realistic, and if that the savings attached to getting that thing and the loss of parking could be, reasonably aligned with the cost of renting this temporary office. Maybe there's some way to do it. We don't know the answer to it yet.
It certainly seems like that would be more true sooner rather than later, though, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, in the current environment, renting office space would be cheaper than if everybody was working 100% in person, right?
Yeah, but I mean, at the moment, we should all stay tuned. Obviously, in January, we will be looking at the real live numbers and the financial implications are the same, and then have to confront the decision about whether to go ahead or not, based on what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
You talked about the roof already, Eric.
That's right.
Did you catch that, David?
Yes.
Okay. And then Vella has made a request.
Yes, Vella would like to place the greenhouses, if you all recall from last year.
Right, which are attached now in Novus. It's the
Right.
same ones he had.
That's right. So this area does fall under the village board's purview. I talked to Robert Hughes, the building inspector. He does not have issue with them being placed there again this year, but wanted to get that in front of the board for your okay, so we can tell Michael Madden over there whether it's a green light. He said, obviously, with the rise in cases, more people are interested in sitting outside, and those were a big hit last year.
Seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we remain in this circumstance where, we provided this public space to the 3 restaurants / breweries where we could realistically do it. And I think everybody gets that and appreciates it. But the reality is it's a benefit we can provide to some, but not to all. And then the other question we confront, which is starting to feel different in the last few weeks than it might have a few weeks before, is, just for example, not everybody is actually using these in the winter. And so the loss of parking and the logistics problems attached to that would be something to consider. But as I will report to the community in a moment, we literally just got the numbers over the Christmas weekend. 52 new positives, total of 208 in December, which is, give or take, 500% above where we have ever been. So who knows what it all means, right?
Right.
But we are blowing through every record, and we're not alone in this regard, obviously. I will say we have been punching above our weight class based on population. But just at the moment, anything we can do to keep the community as safe as they can be and to keep these businesses as viable as they can be, it feels like we need to do it.
Okay.
And, it may be, as we are reading in the press, that Omicron is different in some ways. So please, please, COVID gods, make it different in a good way. Right?
That's right.
But I mean, the numbers are eye-popping.
Yeah, well, at least the one the one record we haven't broken yet is hospitalization rate.
Right. The hospitalization rates in the New York metro region are rising without question, but they are not approaching the crisis level we were in, in a year or more ago.
Mhm. Pre-vaccines.
Yeah. And amid the reality that there are always some folks who either can't get the vaccine for some specific reason or who just won't, Westchester in general, and I think our school district are both highly vaccinated, but that is obviously short of 100%.
I heard that Ardsley is 99% vaccinated. Is that true?
I heard something to that effect. Ardsley is, it would surprise me that anyone could get to 99%, but if they did, more power to them. Ardsley is what, about 4,000 people, Eric? So.
Yep, that's correct.
I think it's the schools that motivated it.
So I think our school district is high, not 99.
No. And the numbers, I don't know what the numbers are like here, but the numbers for kids under 18 or under, well, particularly the 5 to 12, I think, nationally at least, are still pretty low.
Although I think they're pretty good here.
They're pretty good.
There are 108 children in New York State that are hospitalized right now with COVID.
Mm.
So I have the impression, and leave it to the school district to comment to the extent that it's appropriate to do so, but I think that the uptake among BRS families for elementary school kids has been pretty high. So obviously it's behind the middle school and the high school, both because the availability of those vaccines came later, and because parents are more trepidatious about younger kids.
Yeah, and of course, kids under 5 still can't get vaccinated. So
right. So some percentage of kindergartners are, I mean, what, all kindergartners are 4 and 5, right? Virtually all.
Yeah.
So it's so let's before we get to the regular meeting, touch on these test kits. So as reported, we've got 400 test kits, each with 2 tests in them, all boxed up. And you all know the history so far. So Paul, you were raising the question of whether there ought to be a lottery among the ones that are remaining. I think it's kind of complicated to derail that process at this point. We've delivered about 100 of them, Eric and Alyssa?
Yeah, about 100.
And we're doing it based on order of receipt of the emails. And so we have give or take 400 emails and give or take, 700 emails and 400 test kits. So, but the advantage of the way we have approached it is nobody waited in a long line and then didn't get one. Nobody sent everybody and their cousin from the house to get one each and stack up a lot of them in one house. And because we're delivering them to homes in the village, we have increased confidence that they're going to village residents, which was the terms of the deal. Each community got a distribution from the county based on population. And, we're in the complicated circumstance with lots of people who have Pleasantville addresses, lots of people whose kids go to Pleasantville schools who are not village residents. So there's been a little struggle attached to that, but most people get it, I think. But David has offered to assist in the delivery of these things tomorrow. I can deliver some. We've been using the parking enforcement officer today, right?
Yep. Today, Joni and Jaylyn and myself did the deliveries. Tomorrow,
right.
We'll have Mindy, Jaylyn, David, Joni, and a couple other volunteers.
And I can help too. So, Alyssa, did I hear that you thought you might be able to sort them a bit by neighborhood to kind of make the delivery process easier?
Do is I'm gonna sort it by street, and then I will group for each person delivering. I'll group kind of like neighborhoods together to make it easier, so that each person has kind of one corner of the village, so that we can get them out.
Right.
Great.
There was a lot of angst, obviously, that people who were traveling or whatever and wanted to get it before Christmas. A couple of people told me today, and I can't vouch for this, but a couple of people told me that they were back in stock at Walgreens and at some other pharmacies. And I heard from someone who said they got 4 boxes somewhere. So, I mean, that would be obviously good news if these are available again on the commercial market. And I saw the feds said something today about the anticipated increase in supply in the month of January. And I guess there is a proposal to distribute about 500 million kits through the federal government. I don't know how that's going to be done. Honestly, we don't have any idea, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think that we're confident that come January, February, there will be a significant increase in access to these tests.
So, and these are all the antigen tests, right?
That's right.
So, and the sort of common thought about the antigen tests is a positive result from the antigen test is pretty solid. A negative result maybe has a somewhat greater chance of being a false negative. I'm no expert on that. But we also got word today that the county is reopening the county center on an appointment basis only for PCR tests. But those are going to be limited to people who are either symptomatic or have a reported exposure. Right?
That's right. And you can only make appointments 3 days in advance. We posted that on the website and our Facebook page, the dates and the link to the site.
And then I saw today the CDC further modified its advice about the length of quarantine and the return to work period for COVID positive people who cease to exhibit any symptoms. I think I have that right. And that number is now back to 5 days. Is that what did you see that, Eric?
That's correct. And New York State was a bit ahead of that curve. They announced that reduction on Christmas Eve, Governor Hochul. And at least in New York, there's a list of essential workers that would fall under this 5-day quarantine. Although that 5 days, that list is quite extensive. So, the job categories that fall within that catches just about everybody.
Right. Well, at any rate, so Paul, did you have any further thoughts on that?
Oh, that works. I mean, I was just, obviously, with the message, if you don't mind, Nicole, I said that you had said whatever makes it easier for everyone trying to do this. I know we're obviously trying to do our best here, and I think it was the decision we made, I think, was very reasonable. I believe from what I've heard of experiences in other villages and towns, it got a bit crazy, and a lot of disappointed people were in these lines, and I don't even know where we would have gone to do that, and considering it was literally Christmas Eve. So I think this is better, and also people did go to do events. And again, as we said, even if you did these tests, you wouldn't know perhaps if you were positive, it could have been a false negative. So I think that at least now, people will be kind of either going back to places. So making these available to our residents now, I think definitely helps. In regard to doing like a lottery kind of thing, it was just my thought. If I didn't know if by going by emails, if you're just, skipping emails just randomly. My thought process was just, I don't know how many people emailed or had known about what we put out on Christmas. So maybe found out later that night. And so I didn't know if necessarily if it had to be more like, I thought could just be kind of like, if you're just looking at emails and you're just skipping like, 1 and 3, I don't know. But again, I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I was just thinking it just as a if somebody sent an email on Saturday afternoon, they could possibly get it. And that does just make it seem very, look, we just went,
Right.
we just jumped. There was no
Painfully,
sequence.
the reality of this is that no matter how we slice this one, it favors people who are social media savvy or email savvy.
100%.
And it also favors people, and we've been bothering them to do this, who have signed up for our e-blasts, and
Right.
maybe this will actually be a helpful
Yeah,
thing
that is
there.
true. It's
But
true.
it disfavors, folks who are not internet savvy, folks who don't have broadband access, or who are simply struggling. And and some of those folks may be the people who have the greatest need. So it was, I'm sure, for every one of the 45 municipalities, a sort of a catch-22 where everybody's trying to do the right thing from the county on down, but we were all confronted with a circumstance where every act produces both a positive and a negative result. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to be adequate. The hope is that the federal government will step up and, that there actually will be a reasonable supply.
Right. So,
The way there has been in some other countries.
so all right. With that, shall we go into the regular meeting?
Sounds good.
All right.